Hey, welcome to Weld.com, home of TIG time. Hi, I'm Mr. TIG, and today we're on site in my lab in Utah Springs, Kansas, where we're testing out more welding machines, and primarily TIG machines. I have with me Kevin Caron, a sculpture artist, and welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
Hey, today we've got an awful lot of questions on the fundamentals of TIG welding. When I say the fundamentals, from the time that you open up the box for your welding machine, what can you do with that machine? For instance, we have a machine here that's an AC/DC machine. Kevin, I understand you do a lot of artistry type work, and do you use mostly DC or do you use some AC?
I'm doing mostly DC, anything from little tiny sculptures you can hold in your hand to a great big tree that was 16 feet tall and had an 18-foot crown on it. So I used a lot of TIG, I used a lot of stick, I used a lot of MIG on some of those processes, but trying to get better with the TIG, trying to learn all the basics of it and work up from there. It gets confusing sometimes.
Okay, well I'll help you with the TIG if you help me with that other process.
The squirt gun, yeah, that's pretty easy.
Okay, good. Good. Well, I'll tell you what we want to do. We really want to back down to actually the power supply, what it can do for you. And this particular power supply is a 200 amp power supply. So here's a rule of thumb. Every amp that you have available to you, you can weld 1/1000th in thickness. Okay, so we're going to start off and we're going to talk about DC. So if your machine is a DC only, then you're going to be able to weld 4130 chromoly, steel, stainless steel, Inconel, titanium, all kinds of metals, but you're not going to be able to do aluminum and magnesium. You need AC to be able to do that. So this is an AC/DC machine. Now you get a lot of questions about the types of gases that we use. You're going to have to go down to your local supplier, and we're going to recommend primarily 100% argon. No CO2 blend, no MIG mix, go 100% argon. And the reason for that is it's all purpose. And it stabilizes your arc. If you start blending in special blends like helium and things like that, you're going to get arc instability and you're not going to understand why. It welds hot.
What do you mean by arc instability?
Well, first of all, argon transfers electricity.
Okay.
Helium does not. It's a buffer. It's an insulator.
Okay.
So the arc is trying to punch through that helium, and it's just not getting the job done. So the arc will be unstable. It'll bounce around and
it'll wander.
It'll wander. Yeah. Okay. So all you have to do is turn that helium off, and it'll restabilize. It's amazing. So we're going to get started with everything from the gases to the TIG torch that you use, the setup of the TIG torch, and you're going to get different TIG torches. For instance, this particular one here, I call this the club. And it's just a large torch. And it may have a need for heavy-duty welding, but a lot of our TIG welding is very, very fine welding. So we're going to use a different setup on here called a gas lens. And you can see that the torch is smaller, shorter, easier to work with. And once we start going through all the tungsten and cups and all that, you're going to want to know what's the difference between a foot control and a hand control. Right. And which one do you like?
And which one do you use when? I will use a foot control if I'm sitting at the bench. But when I'm out in the middle of my shop working on some big sculpture, trying to drag around the foot control and stand on one foot while you're working the pedal with the other foot and standing on a ladder or anything, no, I want the finger control.
Okay, good. And I'm in the same boat. I do an awful lot of welding, a lot of racing and fabrication. I'd say 95% of my welding is done with a foot control. And if you take a look at this particular foot control, it has this action to it, which is a variable action. Now, this right here is controlled by your foot, so your leg muscles are totally independent. You're not having to mess around with anything on your hand. So this is my favorite. Now, you can actually attach this little device to just about any torch.
Okay.
And all that is an on-off switch. Okay, so you can turn your machine on. You're going to see functions on there. One's called 2T and one's called 4T. Typically, you turn it on 4T, and you hit this switch, and the arc will come on. Now, when you let off, the arc will remain until you decide that you finished your weld, and then you hit it again. So it's a neat little device.
Unless you screw up and have it in 2T, and then just becomes a
on-off switch.
You push it down to run, to get your arc started to be able to weld. As long as you hold it down, your arc stays.
Yes.
The minute you let go of that, your arc stops.
Correct. And this has no variable control. This one will give you the variation of the machine. For instance, if this machine lights off, the arc initiation is 10 amps.
Okay.
Okay, you can see the arc start. And in TIG welding, you can creep up until you get a puddle. You don't have to get in any hurry.
Right.
So as I push this thing down, I can go all the way to 200 amps, and then I can back off to 10 amps. Now we're going to demonstrate this in the next segment or two. In fact, there's a series of 3 or 4 that we're going to do here. We're going to do DC welding as well as AC welding.
Okay.
We're going to get into everything from the headgear. On your show, you get a lot of questions on how do you see the puddle? What's the best way to see the puddle? Well, we're going to break off here in a minute, and we're going to have devices that are going to help you see the puddle because it's critical.
Yeah.
In TIG welding, you need to be able to see approximately 12 to 15 inches away.
Okay.
And if you can't see, you're going to contaminate your tungsten. You're going to be regrinding. So we're going to clear off this table, and we're going to put some other devices up here and explain tungsten and tungsten grinding.
Cool.
Okay, now we're going to get into the safety gear and the welding helmets and the do's and don'ts in welding helmets, gloves, things like that. But before we get started on the welding helmets, let's get into the visual part of it. We were talking about being able to see the puddle. And
I thought you were talking about having a pretty helmet.
Well, that goes along with
it.
That's just a plus. You know, I mean, the graphics make you weld faster and better. But when you're welding, you got to ask the question, what shade of a lens do I put in my welding helmet?
Right.
You know, I'm sure you get those questions all the time.
But why do I see spots? You know, I've been TIG welding for 10 minutes. Right from the beginning, this is all I've ever done is 10 minutes, and when I stop welding, I see spots in front of my eyes. What do you mean I can't wear my sunglasses?
Okay. All right. Well, when you look at these welding helmets, you'll look inside and you'll see that it's got a shade from a 9 to a 13.
Right.
You know, why would you select one over the other? And I can tell you, it's a lot to do with the sensitivity of your own eyes.
Sure.
But if you want a nominal setting, just to do everything all purpose, a good place to start is a 10.
It's a 10, yep.
You know, and you'll find some helmets that's all they have is a 10, or you can put a 10 lens in there.
Right.
Now these go from 9 to 13. If I'm doing very, very intricate welding, and you may think about this when you're doing your artistry type work, you get into your low amps, it's hard to see the puddle.
That is true.
You know, so go ahead and turn it down to 9. And if you don't have a problem with that, you know, at the end of the day and everything is fine, then use 9.
Right.
When you start welding heavy aluminum, when you're in the high amps, rarely do I get into the high amps. Do I ever get into the 11, 12s, and 13s?
So what do you consider high amps?
Well, see, in TIG welding, most of the welding that I do is aircraft, aerospace, or race cars.
Right.
And I'm typically well below 200 amps. And in fact, most of my welding is under 125 amps. You know, so I can deal with a number 10 lens all day long, just not a problem. If I get into aluminum, the aluminum puts out just a few more emissions, you know, so the glare has an impact on you. So you definitely, you sometimes are in the 10 to 11 range. So that's why we have variable controls on these helmets.
Cool.
These are the cool ones. Now I've got the passive ones where you just put a lens in, and it's a number, and you can see it on that shade. So just be careful not to put a gas welding lens in. You'll see a lot of 5, 6, and 7s. Don't put those in there because at the end of the day, your eyes are going to be hurting pretty bad.
Now, do you notice the difference between the auto darkening lenses and the fixed tint lenses as far as visibility?
I do. And you know, over the years, these helmets have been perfected, and they've gotten very, very good. But I can still tell the difference. If I put a glass fixed lens, the clarity of that is so much better than one of these type of helmets.
One of the plastic lenses.
You know, so whenever I need that extra, if I'm welding it, and I do some micro welding at 3 amps, 2 amps, I need the clarity. Not only do I need the clarity, but I need a little extra help. And here's my little extra help. And if if I get on the road and I forgot my reading glasses, again, we're talking about the 12 to 15 inches that you need.
Right.
If I forget these, I can go to any drugstore and get these pretty dirt cheap.
Right, right.
But I noticed that you have something in front of you.
Well, see, I use one of these instead. I use the little cheater lenses that fit right inside the helmet. They'll clip right inside, so they're easy enough to take out and get your nose prints off. Been there, done that. But this replaces the reading lenses for me, reading glasses, because I can't keep them on my nose. You know, when I flip my helmet down, if I'm moving sideways, if I'm welding upside down or something, the glasses are always in the wrong spot. So I go with these instead. And these come in all the different ranges of the reading glasses themselves. Just remember, when you take your helmet off, now you're blind because your glasses are still in the helmet. Yeah. But you know, these are great. I love these. Yep.
So this is part of the safety gear. Make sure you have your welding helmet, put your cheater in. This particular helmet, I actually like the setup of it just a little bit better because I can adjust on the fly. Right. I can adjust from 9 to 13 while I'm welding.
Right. Instead of having to poke the little buttons,
yeah,
you know, that are up inside the helmet.
And that's what I have to do with this helmet. Now, this one has the cool factor to it, so I really like it. But I wish I had the combination where I could twist this, and they do make them that way.
Right.
The other thing is, take a look at the ultraviolets coming off of the TIG welding.
Right.
They're not terribly high, but you do still have to protect yourself. And we're at a hot summer day here, and putting these on is a heck of a lot nicer than putting a jacket on.
Sure.
You know, so if I put these on and put my leather gloves on, you can get some pretty thin leather gloves to do TIG welding. So nice and flexible, and I don't end up with that sunburn right there on my arms. And right here at the V is a real critical area. Right. So just make sure you get everything put into place real well. So we're...
my helmet has a bib that goes on the front, a leather bib that hangs down in front of you to stop the neck burn.
Okay, so we're going to go to the front of the machine and point out some of the functions of the machine. We're going to start off with talking about high frequency. And what is high frequency?
Well, yeah, but if those are the kinds of gloves that you use, what are these for?
Oh, I hate to tell you what they're used for. Maybe you can guide me the right direction. But somebody told me that you use those for MIG welding process.
Yeah, these are MIG gloves. Much heavier, more leather on them, much more resistance to the sparks, to the arcs. You know, if you happen to get close to what you're doing, where these are for the TIG welding because they're much thinner and you have better control, you have better feel in your fingers. So not only can you hold the filler rod, you can hold your torch, you can feel your controls on your torch, but when you drop the darn filler rod on the floor, you can pick them up with these. If you're wearing one of these, you can't pick them up. You'd have no feeling in these whatsoever for doing the fine work. So, if you're going to do TIG welding, make sure you pick up some TIG gloves rather than MIG gloves.
Gosh, I'm glad you defined that for me. I have a tough time saying that. All right, we're going to move on to our next segment. We're going to get into tungsten and your torch setup.
Cool.
We have a couple of torch setups here, and you may have your own preference, but I want to show you a couple of them just to give you the variety. A torch setup right here allows you to put an entire full-length tungsten in place. And your tungsten typically comes in 7-inch lengths. And as you contaminate or grind this, it gets shorter and shorter. But you can see it really makes your torch really a long torch.
Hard getting into some of the tight places.
Yeah. And the thing about it is there's all kinds of cups that you can get that neck down and you can get into tighter places. But one of the precautions that I always like to mention is the Argon setting becomes really critical with this torch setup. Now the orifice right here, this is about a 5 millimeter opening.
Right.
Okay, so when you turn your gas on or your argon, the argon comes out. If you turn it too high, then what happens is you get turbulence and your weld gets worse. And it's exactly opposite what you think. You think more gas is better, and it's not.
But then do I have to go back and change the pressure setting or the flow setting on the gauge, depending on what size cup I'm using?
You do. You absolutely do.
Really?
Yeah. It creates a Venturi effect.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you have to take a look at is, and here's a very good guideline. This cup right here, because of its opening, it only handles about 10 to 15 CFH. 15 being the high end. Okay, now, if you set your tungsten, and this is a very normal stick out.
Okay.
That's about a 1/4 inch stick out.
Okay.
I would set my gauge at 12 CFH for the optimum.
Okay.
Okay, this is not a very forgiving setup.
And
if you turn this up to 20,
right,
and you say, I need better gas coverage,
right,
what's going to happen as soon as the argon gets out here about to the end of your tungsten, it's going to create turbulence.
Okay, so I like to run mine a little farther up inside the cup.
Okay, well you...
I find I get less of that effect. You know, the tungsten seems to last longer for me. If I push it up inside a little bit farther, I can actually turn the gas down just a little bit, so I can save a little on the gas. I'm not using it as quick, and I still get the same effect.
Absolutely, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I rarely set it flush, and the reason for that is you can't see as well, but it ages this alumina,
right,
and the end of it has a tendency to break real easy.
So, and it's harder to get it out.
And it's harder to get it out.
Buried down inside.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you can set this down to 1/8 of an inch, turn your gas down to 8, 9, 10 CFH, and do exactly what you'd mentioned.
Okay. Okay.
For the all-purpose, very forgiving type of torch, I prefer the gas lens.
But it's huge.
It is huge. But
and this is actually a small one.
Yeah.
They come much, much bigger than this.
This gas lens, it has a series of screens. There's probably 5 compressed in here.
Right.
Now, what that does for you is that it shoots the gas out very, very gently in a column.
Right.
Yeah, so you get great gas coverage.
Right.
And the interesting thing about it is you can run your tungsten out extremely far.
Much farther, right.
Yeah, because it is thrusting the gas out.
Why would you do that?
Well, when you get into compound angles, you have a choice.
In the corner.
If you've got to get down into a tight spot, you can either go to a very small neck down cup, or you can go to this.
Okay.
Now, I don't leave it out there. I just weld up that really tight area, and then I'll set it back down at a 1/4 of an inch. And 1/4 of an inch is nominal. I set the gas at 15 CFH, and I just leave it there. Now, I like a lightweight, small torch. You know, and I got small hands, and it fits me very, very well. So this is my preferred method of setup. On any machine, the torches, you can put any type of torch on any machine.
Really?
Yeah, just so you know that. There's little gadgets and widgets. You can adapt anything to any machine.
So if I wanted this small head, I wanted to put a small gas lens on it, but because I got big paws, can I get a large body to go on this torch? Yeah, actually, this is the handle that I prefer because it's small, but I could actually put a larger handle on here, and it'll fit your hand better. Now, so, can I get that at the welding store when I bought the machine?
Sometimes they carry it, but I mean, I specialize in this, so I know that it's available. So at any given time, give me a call.
So I can come to your website?
You can come to my website, yeah.
And what is that website?
Well, it's tigdepot.net.
Oh, okay. Write that down.
So anyway, all these little widgets, they're all important. And like I say, I like this setup. I like the foot control most of the time. Every once in a while, I get into situations like yours where I do need the thumb control. You know, so it's good to have them all. But I want to talk about tungsten in particular.
But there's only one type, right?
Oh, there's one times one. No, there's probably 10 or 15 different types now, and we're gonna post that. We did this on a previous show. Tungsten has gotten confusing. Yeah, you probably have a preferred tungsten. What do you choose?
I ran across the E3, which is the purple head on it, and I've stopped using all the other ones. I found the E3 works just fine for me with everything that I'm doing. Whether it's it's steel, it's stainless. I use it on aluminum. I was using it on a little bit of copper not too long ago. And I don't have to keep changing or trying to remember now which one was this and which one was that and go find the box that it came in. No, I just got one type now. Just use the E3.
Okay. Well, I want to describe this because I get these questions, and I would I would think that you get the same questions.
I get a lot of questions on tungstens. Yeah.
I just brought up 5 different tungstens
Okay.
here, and why would you use one over the other? What's the best tungsten?
I get that question a lot, and I just keep telling people, just go to the E3. You don't have to mess with it anymore.
Okay. Well, for many, many years, we had transformer machines, and the transformer machine was very forgiving on tungsten, and we only had 2 basic tungstens that we recommended. One was red, or thoriated tungsten. The other one was green, which you used for aluminum welding. That was it. And then along came inverters, and we found out that green doesn't perform very well.
Right.
So then we get all these different rare earths. There's the fear of thoria and the 2% thoriated tungsten.
Right. Radioactive.
Radioactive, and you know, we're still here, and I think the lights here probably emit more radioactivity than a tungsten.
Than those do.
But in any case, the real important issue in tungsten is tungsten grinding. Make sure you're not breathing the dust from your tungsten. That's the real hazard.
Right.
So just want you to know that this is an inverter. What I prefer is I still prefer the 2% thoriated.
Okay.
Now the reason for that is I like to weld some of my really super thin materials, and only when you start getting down to the 5 amps and below do you ever see a huge difference in the tungsten. You know, so I could get by. I mean, I've got one here that's a lanthanated tungsten. It's a good tungsten. I've got serrated. It's good. E3. It's a good tungsten. So then it becomes personal preference. I need that real fine welding. 2% thoriated tungsten is not going to go away as much as people have feared that it is. The supply is great. Yeah, so it's not a big deal. And rarely do I use pure anymore, and that used to be our #1 aluminum. And again, if you accidentally put pure into a machine that's an inverter, you're going to get an unstable arc, and it's not you. One of the few times that it's not you, the operator, it's the tungsten. So pick something that's all-purpose, and you like E3, not a problem. I prefer 2% thoriated, and we're going to go into a couple of different segments here. We're going to do DC welding and AC welding, and so we're just going to go ahead and conclude this portion of it, setup of the machine.
Excellent.
And if you have any questions concerning this, email us. We're going to show you some show notes that you can contact us. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank you
Good to be here.
for being on the show. That's it for TIG Time. I'm Mr. TIG. Screwed up already?
And the new record is...
Oh, no!
And the video shoot went downhill from there. Yes.
Ready?